Welcome to Accountants Law Pod, where accounting professionals and law firms converge. Hosted by Linda Artisani, Sarah Prevost, and Stephen Libhart.
I wanted to ask you all what your thoughts are with current tax season and the fires.
That's all going to get pushed. It has to.
It's got to, right?
Yeah, it's like the hurricane.
How do you think that'll get pushed? Do you have to be a victim of the fires, or will they just push the whole? Probably just the.
Oh no, it won't be for us. I think there's the region, the California.
Yeah.
It won't be us. But you imagine all those people. They lost all their. If they were paper centric firm, hey, this is a reason not to be. But you're looking at documents, right? I mean, we had documents that. Mike had documents that were on the floor and they got flooded away. Things that were
the flood, yeah.
And that's
but I was honestly, just curious because it consumes our whole lives right now, right? The sadness.
The floods were nothing compared to what these people have lost.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just hard. It's like in the insurance conversation and all of these things that are. But I just was curious because I know like we could talk about our weekends, but ultimately I feel like it really this will be aired at a later date, but. We are in the times right now where this is all going on.
Let's just hope the fires are out by the time this airs, because this is like, it's the saddest thing to see in these people's lives. I know what it was like for the hurricane, and I know that it's nothing compared to what they're experiencing, really. I mean, I've seen some video footage on Instagram and people videoing, like seeing the fire coming up over the ridge and then trying to save their homes and do whatever they can.
On the news this morning, they had a reporter interviewing this couple who lost their home. And the lady was talking about how an aunt or somebody had just given her a diamond and she was saving money to have it made into a diamond ring. And so the reporter's able to get into the neighborhoods. So the reporter went and found their home and it wasn't burned down. And they told her, she's on the phone with them, and they said, we didn't even get to lock the door. And so she went into their house and they said, can you get our grandma's medicine, please? Because grandma doesn't have her medicine. And she got the medicine and all this stuff. Yeah. And then she grabbed photos from the house to take it to them.
Yeah.
And it was so emotional. I was just in tears this morning over that.
Well,
and then did you read about the insurance in California, the fair insurance? So many insurance companies had already pulled out of California because of the fire danger. The state of California put an insurance law in effect called FAIR, F-A-I-R, and this has devastated their funds. There's nothing left.
I don't see how you can budget for that.
Yeah, how could you?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
federal government has to help.
They're going to have to. Our friends over Blake and David spoke about this last week on
did they?
The funds themselves. But, I'll be honest with you, Linda, you said it. Just the time that years ago when you were going through it and hearing your voice and the concern, and I'm thinking in my mind of our friends. And then on Saturday, my uncle calls and our family members got evacuated. I didn't realize where they were. And
are they okay?
From the sounds of it, they're fine. But your mind just starts going, right, and then you're just total outcry for everybody. So, and it just. That voice on the phone, I felt like I got flashback to when I was talking to Linda and she's like, there's fish in my kitchen. And I'm like, what the?
Yeah. I mean, it's still not the same though, because I still have structure to come back to. I have business to come back to. I mobilized my business and moved it elsewhere where a lot of these people, they
just have nothing.
You have in your home. They have nothing. They might have no school. They might have no livelihood or business. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And I saw a video of a fireman that went in and rescued a kitten, and the guy just collapsed. The guy collapsed on his knees. He said, I don't care about anything else but this.
Yeah.
And you think about all the animal, it's just horrific. That area will never be the same.
Oh.
People's lives will be forever. I mean, they have fires all the time. And the fact that you're going to have PTSD, I have it with the hurricanes. So I can't imagine like the sound of the wind and all of that. And
the smell of fires, I will say, being in Oregon, and we've had some massive.
Yeah, you had the fires.
I've had myself been kind of like, unfortunately, I'm not. Campfires are really hard for me sometimes, just the smell of it, because we had some bad ones back. Thankfully, not endangered us. I mean, it was at some point you questioned it, but it's not to just to say that our hearts are with you all, and I mean, I know that we could probably post links like everyone is, the credible links of where to go to help. If you want to volunteer and send money, we could probably do that as well.
Mariette actually posted some really good links this morning. She's been
yeah,
great
okay,
about posting.
okay,
Mariette Martinez has been posting some really great links. You know, I got one
good.
from you so I can follow everything that's going on in his area because it also heads that way. And anybody else you can think of, like I'm trying to, because California is such a big state. It's like, who do I need to be concerned with? Seth. I thought of Seth because I heard Burbank and kind of like that panic. I was like, is he going to be okay? And
well, my sister lives in the LA area, and I called her last week, and I'm like, please tell me you're okay. And they live down by Disneyland,
Oh,
and
okay.
she said we're okay down here, but
Yeah, yeah.
but
It's just the
we
air quality.
donated to the Colorado Pet Pantry over the weekend, which in our area of the country is gathering donations for food for the pets out there that are being
Oh,
rescued.
good. Oh,
I mean,
good.
they lost everything, like clothes,
Yeah.
everything. You don't think about because that happened here too. Like things just are gone. Like the closet got flooded, so all the clothes are gone. And the same there, they really have nothing. Like I had stuff that was up high on the shelves. They have nothing.
Yeah, yeah. I know because it's a fire, but well, I figured we'd start with that because I wanted to recognize and
I
I
think
know
that's
that
great.
yeah, we do have a topic today. Our topic today is tax season survival tips. So welcome back, everyone. We're going to talk about what we're in.
About the
We're
fire
in tax
again.
season. It feels like a fire. It does. It's always this year that feels very really rushed. I feel like we blink and before we know it, it's March and April. And it's just wild time for us. But there are some things that we could do to help.
Well, I think we're in better shape this year at the Proper Trust because we planned much better this year than we did last year.
Same here.
I don't know about you. Ask me in 2 weeks if that's still the case, but I do feel like we're in control and we have definitely changed the way we approach things. So no longer are we taking a passive space of, the client waits till the last minute. Nope, there's an extra charge if you're going to do that to us because we cannot pull resources off of regularly paying clients
exactly
because you couldn't get us what we needed. And that's the key because that's what happens for the most part. And then of course we rush and they put the pressure on us, which hasn't really happened this year as bad as last year. Last year we they were like all over it on the 2nd of January.
Yeah.
It seems to be a little bit different and quieter, maybe because the dates were different. We didn't actually all go back to work till the 6th. I don't know, maybe just my perception, but
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong in that, Linda. I really do think the way that the calendar fell. And I also feel that the further we get away from the harder segment of times that we've been through in those 4 years, things are shifting. I do feel people are a lot more cognizant of different offerings now.
How to work with you and how
to work with you. Yep. People are a little bit more in the now. They may not be all organized and that's okay. But they're getting better at it. Also, the big change too is that the IRS has, if you qualify for it, you can file directly on their site. Well, I'd be curious how that's going to go because you really have to be organized. And back in the day, I did my own taxes way back in the day. That time I did it, I said, I'll never do it again. I would much rather pay somebody to know the ethics, the rules, the guidance, the whole thing. And I know that we're this way too in our own companies.
I think that, for us, ours is complicated, but people like my daughter, it's not so complicated. She could, I think she hops onto TurboTax or something else. She uses something else because they got to pay Rhode Island. And she does her own. But I think for most older adults that have things and complexity, there's no way I do my own tax return at this point. We for it to be done right.
Well, even if you're simple, but you had 1099 work and you fail to report that correctly or understand what goes behind a 1099 if you are a W-2 and a 1099. I'm not saying it's complicated, but I'm saying if you just don't even know how to answer it or
all
you
the steps,
don't follow the steps, it's really hard to really understand the value. And I think you become more valuable between us and a tax professional around this time of year, obviously.
So let me ask you this. What's the temperature of what happens to us at the end of the year where we get bombarded with those firms who have not planned ahead and all of a sudden they want to hire a new accounting bookkeeping firm and they want it all done by the end of January? What have you seen this year? We've seen quite a bit of traffic in that this year.
By the end of January.
Well, I'm exaggerating a bit, but they want it all done right away and they don't understand.
Oh, yeah. It's part of the survival tip, and that is the education behind what's realistic.
Right.
You are going to need to file an extension. If you're walking in the door with any sort of disorganization or any sort of partially done, I don't even care if you're you have 3/4 left or a quarter left. I'm sorry. You have 3/4 of it completed. I mean, Linda and I've seen it. We don't know what the surprises are, right, Linda? We've seen.
No, we have a client right now that's just, I'll get to it when I get to it. And then it's like, there's no sense of urgency to complete it. Like we did some cleanup and there's no sense of urgency to complete it. And we try to convey to these people that, yes, there's no sense of urgency. If you want to do an extension and wait it out, fine. But don't expect us to get it all bundled up for you by March. If you gave us 6 months, only did 6 months last year, or not even any, which is typically the case, they have done their work. And maybe we gave them a quote back in the beginning of the year, and now all of a sudden they want to come back and get the full price and then want to do the whole year. And now we got to redo the quote. And then they can't take a front seat to our regular clients. The regular clients are our priority, the ones that have been feeding us all last year, and new people are going to have to be process. I mean, there's plenty of time, right? So the tax return, we try to get the records to the client by the end of January so they can review it and then get a second set of eyes to do the tweaking. Like they have to give them let them look through their distributions and make sure that those are all really not business related and go through all that. And you should be doing that anyway in the monthly process. But if it hasn't happened or you have a new client, you need them to look at them, and then we address the different questions we have in a file, and then we get the overall eyes on it, send it to the tax person by like mid-February, because that will only give them a month to get it processed, which is plenty of time. I mean, they're just basically moving numbers onto a system and they have to do, but most of the time they file an extension anyway and not do it till August. So
yeah, well, there's also a lot of questions behind it that we won't know that you might, if you have a self-employed plan, whatever, I mean, the estimates tend to go directly to the tax person. If it all varies, right? It's all has some complexity to it. We've also been in situations where we're not so much on the front line of the reporting of it, but we're the ones having to conform to it if Congress makes a change. And then there's some changes that have happened. With the PayPal thing, it finally came to fruition after 2+ years of conversations and merry-go-round actions.
So look at how meals and entertainment have changed over the past few years,
Yeah. Honestly, I do feel that one thing that really should, and I only say this not because we're in abuse of it at all, but I do feel like meals should go back to 100% only because, and it could have some qualifiers to it, my personal opinion, because that industry is still suffering in such a big, big way.
Good point.
But maybe there's caveats to it, because obviously going and just getting a coffee for yourself at a coffee shop and a pastry does not constitute that's a business meal. There should be, maybe some substantial criteria to either it's an employee, team member, whatever it is, but
under $25 doesn't count.
Maybe something like that, or something, something like that. But that's just an idea. I'm not saying I disagree with the way it is now. I just look at it through the lens of the industry, and how to support an industry that's suffering, and still suffering. You see it all the time. Favorite places close.
And so many of our legal clients have extensive, I guess, for lack of better words, client entertainment and client development expenses. I mean, that's a huge thing for them. And, understanding
there's no entertainment anymore.
I know
that, right? Like
I still break it out, see what it is.
I agree.
Put it to entertainment not deductible so that they know it's not deductible.
Right
so when they get their paperwork back, right in the title.
Yeah, she does. Yeah,
and meals at 50%. So they know that 50% of the meal is covered, but the other, because when they get their report back, they expect the bottom of our profit and loss to match the tax return and that part of it. And it doesn't, because there's tweaking. And then there's also, they'll get depreciation. So that sometimes is not reflected in our books until we get the tax return. And in that case, it might still kind of balance out. But and there's also those other things that we've had to dump down in the bottom that are call outs to the tax person that maybe there was adjustments, maybe we get the file and nobody had booked to tax. Now we have these prior year adjustments that get booked down at the bottom, which is a conversation with the tax person.
For those newer bookkeepers that are watching this podcast, you're talking about the other category at the bottom.
The other, the sore thumb category. You want to show up like we did with the PPP stuff, and just make sure that it's seen, and then the questions will come from the tax person, because that's the thing.
You got to lay out the story, right? That's what we always say. We even go as far as laying out travel a little bit more detailed. Clarity. I most tax people really want, especially good ones, they always want the GL or the details behind a profit and loss and a balance sheet, or most have a certain work ethic. No one's right or wrong in it, but I do feel like we do a better job if we can call it out and do much more due diligence. And Linda really does. She goes back through and she really highlights certain areas and calls it out. From our mentor Seth, he's always said, prior year adjustments, because it really does give the tax person opportunity on how to handle it. There might be a different way. There might have been something we don't know about in a prior year that we're unaware of, kind of thing.
I've seen other people's books come through, and bookkeepers book things to retained earnings, which you can't do because they tie back to their records. That's the thing. I think sometimes people think that's like the black hole dumping zone, that they can
I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh, look at that prior tax return and make sure, does it work? Yes. Does it match up? And if it doesn't,
it has to match up.
Don't book it there. Steve,
I've seen it though.
We've seen it. Yeah. Steve, what are some things for you that come to mind for your own survival, for you and your team during this time? Is there like a cadence or a pace in which you work with people? Do you set stuff up in advance with clients? How do you navigate that?
We like to set it up in advance because, you always have new clients that you took on during the year, and you really want to take care of them and teach them the nuances of their bookkeeping. Yeah. And so we really tune into them to make sure that they have a map of what needs to be done by when. And that we've already had conversations with their tax preparer / CPA throughout the year to understand what their workflow is and what they're like to work with. So that's one thing. The second thing is this last year, especially, we really ramped up talking about getting W-9s all throughout the year, and reminding them that, we're not going to wait until January 31st to enter your W-9s. We're going to enter them by X date in January. And so you need to have your information to us. And to your point, Linda, if they don't have it to you on time, then, they go to the bottom of the line in getting them done. And sometimes we have to charge more. There's a penalty for not getting that information, especially when we've prepped you all year long. Yeah.
Well, can I ask you though, on that note, 1099s really are very tricky at times. And we see a lot of questions around our colleagues asking, especially newbies asking a lot of questions. But if that's not an engaged service, as a monthly contractual, that is a separate service. And I don't know why people think
it should be all bundled in.
It should be all bundled in.
I learned this from Ben Day a few years ago. He was one of our guests on the podcast. I learned this from him a few years ago. In October, November, you send out a letter to every client that gives them the steps that they need to do to be successful with their 1099 reporting for the next year. And everything has a price to it, and everything has a deadline date to it. If you don't perform by that deadline date on that list, then price starts to go up. And then there's a cutoff. If they don't perform, it's like you're on your own. So
it makes it hard though when you have the PayPal crap of the world that happens on December, whatever. It's happened to us multiple times. It makes it hard. I love the idea of it. I love that we're gonna. For us, I think we're gonna do something a little different because it's.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What's going to work for you?
I think what Lynn and I are kicking around. We want to really lay out the schedule because it is also a time of holiday celebration with family. It is time. It's a year-end grind, but it's in preparation for these next few months. So I feel like what we might do is switch it up a little bit. People have an opportunity. If you're not already engaged, this is, you make an election, like you're saying, you make a decision. But I do feel like the place that she and I are at right now with our own company, we do want our staff to enjoy their holidays with their families.
Yes.
And not be beholden to those last minute decisions.
Well, you know what comes to my mind to help address that?
Tell me.
And then also ties in to what you mentioned a minute ago, and not being included in the contract or the letter of agreement or whatever you have with your clients is in late summer up until maybe early October. At some point, you reach out to them and say, would you like us to review your file for 1099s and W-9 compliance?
Good idea.
And if you'd like us to do that, it's in addition to our contract with you. And this is what it'll cost. And we're going to report back to you and tell you what we see. And then that can fold into that schedule you give them of when things need to be done. And it creates another revenue source. It shows that you care. And I should flip-flop that. It shows that you care and then creates another revenue source and really gives you a snapshot of what's to come in January.
Yeah.
Also informing them that it's not part of the commitment
exactly.
already.
Yeah.
Because it's a big job.
Well, we had our lovely guest on that talked about 1099s, the compliance, the complexity.
Right.
I mean, I frankly felt a little bit, not fear of him, but fear of the outcomes. That
yeah.
Did you all feel that way? I felt that way.
Yes, for sure.
It was eye-opening. It really was. And so how do we communicate that to our clients?
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, Linda, how you feel, but liability on some of it, it's really tricky because everything's got to be in writing when it's this time of year.
Yep. Well, let's talk about another subject for the year end. Back to what we were talking about on the P&L and where everything goes, and meals and entertainment and marketing and travel and all those sorts of things. What about parking? There are law firms who just pay for parking out the wazoo, and we don't know if it's client parking, if it's a pass through, if it's a firm parking, filing fees. What were all these filing fees for? I mean, it just depends on what type of law they're practicing, what you're going to see on the books and where it needs to be allocated. And some of them say, I don't pass this on to my client. It's all going to be a firm expense. Other ones want to parse it out. And so again, if you're having those conversations throughout the year, if you're doing that big file review in late summer, early fall, you can address a lot of that stuff. But to your point, before the holidays, when they don't want, attorneys disappear in December. They take their time off, their well-deserved time off, and we want to pass that on to our staff as well. I took my vacation in December this year because finally I had a year where we could do that.
Yeah.
Except the cold. It was good.
Yeah. Then I got sick afterwards, but.
Except just that one.
I got punished for taking time off, but that happens. So.
Yeah, I also noticed too, and I feel like I wrote this to somebody recently. You make a SEP contribution. What year is that for? You make your tax payments and your estimates. Okay, we need clarity.
Well, tax estimates are due what's today? The 13th? They're due in 2 days.
15th. What's so funny too is when they make a payment and they pay from their funds, so they're a partnership, they take the money out of the business and pay their taxes, their estimated taxes, and you put it in their distribution. They're like, why is that a distribution?
Yeah, I know. They always get stuck
on that. You
have
to explain that. I can see why that they think it should be a business expense. Like the business made the money, but the business is you. That's what I tell them.
Well, and Linda, didn't that happen?
That
happened to me when I first started out years ago. Didn't that come up in your mind too? It's like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah. What is this? How is this added back in? Well, I feel that way when I see when you start to see the survival tip says this is a survival tip, you start to see your health care, your health coverage. You spend all this money on how that gets pushed back out and back in. And I mean, it's something you need to be aware of because it has to be on the W-2 and all of that, which is fun.
If you're S Corp, if you're an S Corp, that's a 2% above shareholder. Yes, it has to be there. There are some weird little things that when you make these transitions from just you to a formation of some sort that requires an additional, there are some things that you would not know as a regular business person.
No, right.
This is
nor should you.
No, and nor should you. Yeah, you are in your craft. You're in your profession. So, and also, receipts, having documentation. making entity changes mid-year. We are going through a pretty big cleanup for somebody on a piece that wasn't our part, but we are a part of now helping. And it's painful. It's costly. It's painful. And yeah. So I think really if there's a tip to make in that is like be really strategic, make sure you are talking to the right people when you need to make certain changes. If it's an entity structure, if it's a contribution to a 401k, make sure you understand what you're doing. You just didn't get the advice from somebody else or an advisor just who doesn't have a full picture of your perspective. That's not.
Make sure you know if you're cash or accrual based.
Yeah, make sure that.
Another one that the person doing the bookkeeping needs to know. Don't just not know. You got to know. And the tax return gives us that information. I just showing that to a team member, one of our staff members the other day. She's like, "Oh, it's on the tax return." I'm like pulling it down. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm trying to remember where I see it. It's near the top somewhere in the beginning, you know."
Yeah.
You mean on cash basis, I can't write off uncollectible AR?
No, you want. Oh, you want
what?
There are so many things.
You want bad debt expense, Steve?
Yeah. No.
Pro bono work. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Right.
How do I get credit for all this work that I didn't collect on? Well, you didn't get paid, so you're not paying taxes on that. And you try to explain that, and it's I get it. They did the work, they didn't get paid, and now they want to get some kind of a bump from it. But if you never paid the tax on it in the first place, then there's really no bump to be had.
Right.
TikTok is not your advice for tax.
I think it's getting shut off too, isn't it? In a few days, I think
it looks like it's going to go away, but
and then it's going to move to
might be back on by the time we get back on. Who knows?
Anyways, yeah. Well, I mean, so for us as accountants, it sounds like if I heard everybody right, it's communication.
Yes,
being very clear about deadlines and guidance on things as best we can. Right. Like
be prepared, map it out, get a workflow, but then know that if you're picking up a client in January, you're going to have to know that you have to set that record and set that up right in the beginning of the contract or the engagement, because it's going to be different for that person. If they're coming to you in January with all of last year not being done, there has to be an expectation and then a possible date that you're going to be done, and a different workflow for that person as opposed to a client you've had all year. And this is the workflow that you have. But set those dates on the calendar and be firm about it. Let the client know, like Sarah just said, communication, let the client know, and then stick to it, adhere to it. Don't waver. Oh, this person was, away on vacation and that's why they didn't give me the information. And now it's January 30th and the information I needed to do the 1099s is coming in at 10 o'clock at night. No. So
and by the way, they cut off at 8 p.m. Pacific time for submission on the 31st. So you are not on a 1099 for an NEC. Done.
I think it's the 28th that you have to have.
Yeah, most are backing up sooner because of mailing requirements and all those things. And honestly, I don't disagree. I know that I will be pushing much harder, and I have been this year, and we've already kicked off quite a bit already this year.
Our goal is to not have Sarah be on that thing till midnight, getting it here and getting the work done.
Well, I put our cutoff date at the 20th in January every year, the 20th. And that's what I tell the clients. And it's like, got to happen by then.
Because we're also prepping for
getting the numbers, getting the FEINs and the tax identification numbers. It's that. So,
so hopefully there could be a change to it in the future. There should be a better workflow.
Let's hope so.
I mean, I am tired of it. This is a hokey pokey dance.
Well, maybe our friend Mr. AI will come up with something. You never know.
I don't know.
I'd like to say I hope the government does, but I don't have a lot of hope there. Would be nice for Mr. AI to help us. That would be a good place for AI to help us, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm just looking at even the way things are working in QuickBooks and trying to go through that stuff in the 1099 module. And I did it for clients, and it's pulling up all sorts of names that it thinks it might be. And I'm like, oh, it's so far off. What would make you think that this is what that is? But
exactly. It's scary.
Where's the AI there? I have the AI assist thing, Intuit Assist. Come on, Intuit. You should know that, Adobe or isn't a 1099.
I don't waste my time looking at needless stuff that's unnecessary.
Big lists, and
that's the exhaustion from it too, is parsing it out and then really tracing it back. How was this person actually paid? Oh, Zelle. Oh, but Zelle's attached to a bank account. It's a debit card.
Oh,
That's
I know.
still
It's
attached to a
brain.
bank
It's just a
account.
brain messes with your brain
Yeah.
every year.
Yeah. And people, yeah. Anyways, well, if you ever want to go back and listen to the scary 1099 outcome.
Yeah, we have two of those.
Have those. That was an amazing conversation. Anyways, wow. Well, I think we gave some good tips overall, to be honest with you. I don't know. Do you have more to add, anybody?
Just one more. If you're, again, I'm thinking of all the newbies today that might be watching this. Please don't be afraid to tell, number one, your client that you want to have a relationship with their CPA and tax preparer. And number two, talk to that person at least once a quarter throughout the year. And guess what? You're going to learn so much, and they're going to respect you because they're like, okay, this is a real person. They care. They're not just going to dump this pile of stuff on me at the end of the year. I've
pile of stuff.
This has made such a big difference. Yeah. This has made such a big difference for us in this company, and is just having those relationships with those people. Yeah. Because when year end comes, they tend to communicate better with us now.
Well, honestly, we do 1099s for law firms. There's a lot of same vendors. So there's a lot of data that we hold. Whereas you as a new attorney or you as a new law firm, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of admin work that's got to go out there and get all this data at the last second if that's what's going to happen to you. So there is some benefit to utilizing a professional that has a lot of this information and understands and recognizes this stuff. But
good point. Good point.
Well, you got some valid points there too. I mean, I think between the three of us, it's quite a bit here. You could feather out the nuggets yourselves, I guess.
There you go.
This was good.
Thank you.
To support the Accountants Law Pod, don't forget to like, share, and leave a review. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. If you have questions or topic requests, shoot us an email at info@accountantslawpod.com or send us a message through our website, accountantslawpod.com. To join our weekly Accountants Law Lab mastermind sessions, head over to accountantslawlab.com to sign up.
Well, cheers to a good tax season that we can say we survived.
Cheers with my coffee.
There we go. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.